Blessings, BookTube. I'm going to talk to you today about an amazing book, incredibly intricate. So I'm going to do my best to simplify it um, without losing all the depth. If you grew up at a certain age, my age, I guess, and you had a book on Greek Roman mythology, if it wasn't Edith Hamilton's, it was Robert Graves. Robert Graves is really an expert in his field. Um, but this book sees him stretch himself a bit outside of his field. It is called The White Goddess. And we'll get to what he's trying to do with this book in a minute. But I want to just open by reading you one page, um, one page of this book. See if you can count how many allusions um, Graves is able to fit in here. And you're going to see really the depth of knowledge that we're dealing with. There was a poet that said, I feel rich in the currency of a lost kingdom. I sometimes feel that way. I did do French, so at least I got the last lingua franca before English. However, I did not learn Latin. And I feel, to really do classics properly, you ought to learn Latin and Greek. Just the way if you want to do the Bible, you need to do Hebrew as well. And I don't have those languages. So as scholarship trickles down from my forebears who had those knowledge bases to what I have, and now to what is coming after me, which might be, English only, or who knows, AI, I feel we've lost a lot. Here's what I think we've lost. Why do this is from chapter 22, The Triple Muse. Why do poets invoke the muse? Milton, in the opening lines of Paradise Lost, briefly summarizes the classical tradition and states his intention as a Christian of transcending it. Sing, heavenly muse, that on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai didst inspire that shepherd who first taught the chosen seed in the beginning how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. Or if San Hill delight thee more in Siloa's brook that flowed fast by the oracle of God, I thence invoke thy aid to my adventurous song that with no middle flight intends to soar above the Ionian mount while it pursues things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme. Now, the Ionian Mount is Mount Helicon in Boeotia, a mountain a few miles to the east of Parnassus. This is Graves now, picking up at the end of the citation, and known in classical times as the seat of the Muses. The adjective Ionian is a reminiscence of a memorable line from Virgil's Georgics, Ionio radians dudicam vertice musas, which is spoken by Apollo, the god of poetry, who by Virgil's time was also recognized as the sun god. The line means, on my return I shall lead the muses down from the top of Mount Helicon. Apollo is referring to the transplanting of the worship of the muses from Askra, a town on a ridge of Helicon, to Delphi on Mount Parnassus, a place which had become sacred to himself. On Helicon rose the spring named Hippocrene, the horse well, which was horseshoe shaped. The legend was that it had been struck by the hoofs of the horse Pegasus, whose name means of the springs of water. Poets were said to drink of Hippocrene for inspiration. Hence John Skelton's lines from Against Garnesha. I gave him of the sugared well of Heliconis waters crystalline. But it may be supposed that Hippocrene and Aganippe were originally struck by the moon-shaped hoof of Leucippe, white mare, the mare-headed mother herself, and that the story of how Bellerophon, son of Poseidon, mastered Pegasus and then destroyed the triple-shaped chimera is really the story of the Achaean capture of the goddess's shrine. Pegasus, in fact, was originally called Aganippe. Aganos is a Homeric adjective applied to the shafts of Artemis and Apollo, meaning giving a merciful death. So Aganippe would mean the mare who destroys mercifully. This supposition is strengthened by the Greek legend of the pursuit of Demeter, the barley mother, by the Achaean god Poseidon. Demeter, to escape his attentions, disguised herself as a mare, and concealed herself among the horses of Onchios the Arcadian. But Poseidon became a stallion and covered her. Her anger at this outrage was said to account for her statue at Oncium, called Demeter Erinus, the Fury. Demeter, as a mare goddess, was widely worshipped under the name of Epona, or the three Oponae, among the Gallic Celts. So now we're moving from the Greco-Roman world to the British Isles. And there is a strange account in Giraldus Cambrensis' Topography of Ireland, which shows that relics of the same cult survived in Ireland until the 12th century. It concerns the crowning of an Irish petty king of Tyrconnell, a preliminary to which was his symbolic rebirth from a white mare. He crawled naked toward her on all fours as if he were her foal. She was then slaughtered and her pieces boiled in a cauldron. He himself entered the cauldron and began sucking up the broth and eating the flesh. Afterwards, he stood on an inauguration stone, was presented with a straight white wand, and turned about 3 times from left to right, and then 3 times from right to left, in honor of the Trinity, no doubt in honor of the triple white goddess. That 3 by 3 is how he eventually gets to the 9 muses. We won't read all that far. The horse or pony has been a sacred animal in Britain for prehistoric times, not merely since the Bronze Age introduction of the stronger Asiatic breed. The only human figure representing what survives of British old stone art is a man wearing a horse mask carved in bone, found in the Derbyshire Pinhole Cave, a remote ancestor of the hobby horse, mummers in the English Christmas play. The Saxons and Danes venerated the horse as much as did their Celtic predecessors, and the taboo on eating horseflesh survives in Britain as a strong physical repugnance, despite attempts being made during World War II to popularize hippophagism, which is eating horse meat, like the French do. But among the Bronze Age British, the taboo must have been lifted at an annual October horse feast, as among the Latins. In medieval Denmark, the ecstatic 3-day horse feast, banned by the church, survived among the heathenish serf class. A circumstantial description is given by Johannes Jensen in his Fall of the King. He mentions that the priest first sprinkled bowls of the horse's blood toward the south and east, which explains the horse as an incarnation of the spirit of the solar year, son of the mare goddess. And now it goes into the second page. In the romance of Pwyll, pronounce that if you know, Prince of Defed, the goddess appears as Rhiannon, mother of Pryderi, and so on and so forth. So you can see that extremely dense erudition in numerous fields: archaeology, mythology, Celtic, biblical, Greco-Roman. And unfortunately, his grasp exceeds his reach, or vice versa. He goes a bridge too far a bit with the Celtic stuff. He's out of his depth. Arguably, I'm not sure how his Hebrew was. His biblical or Old Testament stuff might be worth double checking as well. But on the Greco-Roman stuff, he's solid. So here is the contents of this book, and you can see how far again he ranges. Chapter 1, Poets and Gleemen. 2, The Battle of the Trees. That's the big one. 3 is Dog, Roebuck, and Lapwing. 4, The White Goddess. 5 is Gwion's Riddle. Gwion's Riddle. Sorry, Gwions. I can never do the Gaelic WE vowel sound. 6 is A Visit to a Spiral Castle. Ooh, neat. I don't remember that one. 7 is Gwion's, again, Riddle Solved. 8 is Hercules on the Lotus. How Buddhist. 9 is Gwion's Heresy. Gwion. 10 and 11 are the Tree Alphabet, which is his main downfall in this book. 12 is the Song of Amergin. 12 is Palamedes and the Cranes. 14, the Roebuck and the Thicket. 15, the Seven Pillars. 16, Holy Unspeakable Name of God. 17 is the Lion with the Steady Hand. 18, the Bull-Footed God. 19, Number of the Beast. 20, Conversation at Paphos, AD 43. 21, The Waters of the Styx. 22, which we just read, the Triple Muse. 23, Fabulous Beasts. 24, the single roetic theme. This also gets him in trouble whenever you try to get to some single theme. And 25, War in Heaven. 26, Return of the Goddess. And 27, Postscript 1960. So he moves on in this chapter to look at that story that I just told you about. He gets to the muses, as I said, from the 3x3 of the triple goddess. The muse, priestess of Helicon, presumably used two products of the horse to stimulate their ecstasies: the slimy vaginal issue of a mare in heat and the black membrane, or hippomanes, cut from the forehead of a newborn colt, which the mare, according to Aristotle, normally eats as a means of increasing her mother love. Dido in the Aeneid used this hippomanes in his love potion, her love potion, excuse me. Skeleton, in his Garland of Laurel, thus describes the triple goddess in her three characters as goddess of sky, earth, and underworld. Diana in the leafless green, Luna that so bright does sheen, Persephone in hell. Okay, so another problem is with archaeology. The finds have moved so far, and especially lately, if you've been following with DNA extraction from the old ear bones, a lot of archaeology is being turned on its head. So some of his Greco-Roman archaeology might also be a bit suspect. But he goes on to talk about Maid Marian, Mary Maid, Mare Maid, mermaids, of course, Mary Magdalene. What else have we got here? The Nine Muses, as I said. And eventually we're going to get to, I think there was one more thing I wanted to mention, but we're going to get to the story of here it is. Nope. Lady Godiva. There it is. Lady Godiva. And we'll end with that. Robin Hood, Maid Marian. Okay, I think I mentioned everything I wanted to mention. And of course, there's each of these pages is just as dense with allusions as the one that I read for you to start this. In classical times, the Cretan, Cyprian, and Delphic years, and those of Asia Minor and Palestine, ended in September. Just a random sentence taken off the page there. And of course, you've got these dense, long footnotes as well. You can see I traveled with this book. It's really fallen apart. But in a way, it helped me to be able to take it apart and analyze it. So Godiva, the love chase. So there's this story of the love chase. The love chase is unexpectedly the basis of the Coventry legend of Lady Godiva. The clues provided by a Misery seat in Coventry Cathedral paralleled elsewhere in early English grotesque wood carving, which shows that the guidebooks call a figure emblematic of lechery, a long-haired woman wrapped in a net, riding sideways on a goat and preceded by a hare. Gaster, in his stories from the Jewish Targum, collected all over Europe, tells of a woman who, when given a love test by her loyal royal lover, namely to come to him neither clothed nor unclothed, neither on foot nor on horseback, neither on water nor on dry land, neither with or without a gift, arrived dressed in a net, mounted on a goat, with one foot trailing in the ditch and releasing a hare. The same story with slight variations was told by Saxo Grammaticus in his late 12th century History of Denmark. Aslog, the last of the Volsungs, Brynhild's daughter by Sigurd, was living on a farm at Spangereid in Norway, disguised as a sooty-faced kitchen maid called Raven. Even so, her beauty made such an impression on the followers of the hero Ragnar Lodbrok that he thought of marrying her. And as a test of her worthiness, told her to come to him neither on foot nor riding, neither dressed nor naked, neither fasting nor feasting, neither unattended nor alone. She arrived on goat back, 1 foot trail on the ground, clothed only in her hair and a fishing net, holding an onion to her lips, a hound by her side. If the two stories are combined into a picture, the figure emblematic of lechery has a black face, long hair, raven flying overhead, a hare running ahead, a hound at her side, fruit to her lips, net over her, and a goat under her. She will now be easily recognized as the May-Eve aspect of the love and death goddess Freya, alias Frigg, Holda, Held, Hilda, Goda, or Ostara. In Neolithic or early Bronze Age time, she went north from the Mediterranean, where she was known as Dictyna from her net, Aegea from her goat, Coronis from her raven, also Rhea, Britomart, Artemis, and so on, and brought the maze dance with her. Whoa, so the maze dance even. Yes, he also developed some stages through this chapter of uh, the coming of a sort of more patriarchal, patrician form of marriage. So he does a little bit of history as well in there, along with the archaeology, the mythology, and whatnot. But I think he's strongest there. You can see on the mythology, right? So in that telling of the Godiva story, for which he finds, Latin equivalents, Targum equivalents. So in Hebrew, I think that it's a lot more believable that this story has these common elements across some interesting different cultures and different times. But unfortunately, when he starts to get into some of his broader um, uh, pronouncements, it gets a little bit iffy. So at one point, he says that the British, right? The British, they are. What does he say? There's an unconscious hankering in Britain after goddesses. If not for a goddess so dominant as the Aboriginal triple goddess, at least for a female softening of the all-maleness of the Christian Trinity. The male trinity corresponds increasingly less with the British social system, in which woman, now that she has become a property owner and voter, has regained the position. Oh, here it is. The British are a mixed race, but the non-Teutonic goddess-worshipping strains are the strongest. This explains why the poet's poetry, written in English, remains obstinately pagan. The biblical conception of the necessary supremacy of man over woman is alien to the British mind. Among all Britons of sensibility, the rule is ladies first on all social occasions. The chivalrous man dies far more readily in the service of a queen than of a king. Self-destruction is indeed the recognized proof of grand passion. And for Banian Lari, I wad me dunandi. I wad lay me dunandi. Okay, so because that is about the Britons, and many of you, Britannic, however you want to say, UK origin, that's probably a wrong way to phrase that, can say, oh, that's a pretty broad generality we're not so comfortable with. But, we make these kinds of generalities even today still about cultures, the Chinese, right? The Chinese are like this or like that. On the other hand, something I think is lost when we no longer have geniuses such as this trying to bring all of these ideas together, even when the theories don't quite pan out. I, for example, was a big fan, and I do think there's some real useful arguments in Guns, Germs, and Steel that tried to do sort of a big narrative. And the problem is that in the case of this book coming into the Celtic world, even though he thought he had the archaeology, and of course he would. Why would he not think he had the archaeology, the mythology? Because remember, all the sources are written in Latin, right? He knows Latin. But the thing is, they didn't know Gaelic, they didn't know Brittonic, they didn't know Welsh, they didn't know Scottish. And so he makes major mistakes with the core argument of this book, which is the development of this tree calendar. So he identifies probably correctly the importance of the trees, right? And he tries to really nail down which trees and which are the uses of which trees. And so he's got this text, right, which is the Battle of the Trees, and he thinks, it's really the form in which he had it at that time was very confused, and he thought it had been misordered. So what he did was he reordered the Battle of the Trees, and he thought, aha, now this all flows now, and it gives us this whole calendar, right? This tree goes with this month, etc., etc. The problem is our knowledge of that text and of the source languages by experts has moved on, and they filled in those gaps. And in fact, the Battle of the Trees text was not misordered; it was just missing some things. And in the new text, it's pretty clear that all of his arguments about the tree calendar anyway fall flat. So so there you go, a brilliant miss, I guess we could say, White Goddess. But he's still a great one to read on the Greco-Roman myths, especially. I'm sure you can still find paperback books of his Greek mythology by Robert Graves. And he's an interesting character too. If you want to check him out on YouTube, if you can catch any of the interviews and whatnot that have been done with him. I really enjoyed reading it. It took me pretty much as long as I've been in Thailand working through that book. And I'm still, uh, half of it washes over me. So if you feel overwhelmed by some of those references, don't worry. So do I. And that's okay. I think that's the best way to read it. Just the way I recommend learning a foreign language. Just wade in and don't try to, get everything all at once, and just let some things go and grab what you can. And it's certainly full of fun ideas to discuss and craziness. I mean, what is this about? The muses are being sent into a trance using these various parts of the horse. Oh, and it's got a real interesting argument in here too about how actually asses are smarter than horses, and that was a whole thing as well about two clashes of cultures because the Aryan invaders came in with their horses, and all of that meta narrative, which is also being repieced as we speak with the DNA. So great. Thank you so much for listening, and I invite you with Rumi to sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment.